It's basically a book on creating your own programming language. It's a really short read. It's like 150 pages. So it doesn't really get into detail about creating your own programming language. It's more of how I'm viewing it at least, is it's inspirational to learn how the specifics of writing your own language. I mean, so what's the benefits? Why do I want to learn how to write my own programming language? I guess it's the first thing is I'm just not a fan of writing PHP. I just don't like the language all that much. So what I do like is Ruby. I love writing code in Ruby. It feels right. I don't know. So my goal with this was to write kind of a Ruby to PHP compiler. So I'd write my code in Ruby, compile it to PHP, and then I can contribute it to the team in whatever project we're working on. So then I started thinking about how, okay, I do this, but now I have to solve another problem and work with the existing code base or bases. So then I started thinking, okay, well now I've got to figure out how to compile it back to Ruby. Where I could see a challenge already is that one of my coworkers writes code, they're happy with the way they've written it, and when I compile it to Ruby, since there's just so many ways to solve a problem, the same problem in Ruby, so many ways to skin a cat, right? When I compile it back to PHP, it might look very different from what they wrote in the first place. So I guess there's a couple of approaches I could take. One would be to kind of add annotations in the code so that when I compile it to Ruby and then compile it back to PHP, it doesn't overwrite any of that code that was already written. It just adds my code, which creates more challenges. Then the other challenge I just thought of now is I guess the project I'm working on uses a framework, and a big part of writing software is testing. So you write your software and you test it, whether you test it with like a unit test, an integration test, or manually just step through your code and have, debug statements or echoes. With the framework, it's an entire web application. How am I going to mimic that within Ruby? I don't know if it's going to be possible. Probably not. It'll be challenging. So, okay, that was one reason. And then whether I actually succeed at that or not, it's kind of not even a big deal. So the next thing would be being able to take Ruby code and compile it to, let's say, C or some other language, preferably CUDA C actually, so that you can take advantage of the GPU straight from Ruby. I haven't put much thought into it, but that's another goal, especially with the GPU Tech Conf coming up. Next year I could potentially give a talk on this if I'm successful. I don't know. What else? I guess just the biggest thing about learning how to write a programming language is it just makes you a better programmer, probably within any programming language. Understanding how code is broken up and translated into a machine language the benefits, just I think in any programming language, they're just there. So if nothing else but that, I believe I'll become a better programmer by learning how to write a programming language.